The stories you're about to hear were all posted online as true experiences. They come from a strange corner of the internet where the line between what is real and what is not is blurred on purpose. For the next couple of hours, I'm going to guide you through some of the most disturbing and believable tales from Reddit, SR, No Sleep community stories that just feel a little too real. The R No Sleep community runs on one simple but powerful rule. Everything is true, even if it isn't. Both the readers and the writers have to act as if every post is a real event, happening to a real person. It's this shared agreement, this collective suspension of disbelief, that makes the stories born there so uniquely unsettling. These aren't just your average ghost stories. They're personal accounts of minds slowly unraveling, of the everyday twisting into something evil, and of that horrifying realization that you're not safe, not even in your own home. If you enjoy stories that play with that line between fiction and reality, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what I have coming for you. So turn down the lights, settle in, and try to remember. They're only stories, aren't they? Section 1. The Babysitter and the Man Upstairs. My first story for you is a classic for a reason. Its terror doesn't come from some monster or ghoul, but from its chilling simplicity. It's about the invasion of a place that's supposed to be safe. This is a story that's been told and retold for decades, an urban legend that found a new, terrifying life online. It's a stark reminder that sometimes the most frightening calls are coming from inside the house. This is one version of that tale. It was a job like any other. A young couple, the Millers, needed a sitter for their 2 kids, a boy and a girl, who were already tucked into their beds upstairs. The house was on a quiet, tree-lined street, the kind of place where people don't even lock their doors. I was 16, saving up for a car, and a quiet night of TV and free snacks for $20 an hour sounded like the perfect gig. "They're sound asleep," Mrs. Miller said, grabbing her coat. "They shouldn't be any trouble. Just make yourself at home. The number for the restaurant is on the fridge, just in case." I smiled, told them everything would be fine, and locked the door behind them. The house was dead quiet, except for the low hum of the refrigerator. I did a quick check on the kids, just a peek into their rooms. Fast asleep, just like she said. I went back downstairs, found the remote, and crashed on the huge, comfortable couch. About an hour later, the phone rang. I picked it up. "Hello?" "Miller Residence." Silence. A completely dead line. Then a soft click. I shrugged it off. Wrong number, probably. 20 minutes later, it rang again. "Hello?" I said, a little more annoyed this time. Again, silence. But just before the click, I thought I heard something. A faint breath, maybe. A little trickle of unease ran up my neck. It was just my imagination. I told myself, probably just the shadows in this big, unfamiliar house. I tried to get back into the movie, but I couldn't focus. Every creak of the old house made me jump. Then the phone rang a 3rd time. My hand was actually trembling a little as I picked it up. "Listen, this isn't funny," I said, trying to sound braver than I felt. A voice answered, low and raspy. "Have you checked the children?" I froze. The blood turned to ice in my veins. "Who is this?" Click. The line went dead. My heart was hammering against my ribs. Was this Mr. Miller, playing some kind of sick joke? It had to be. I grabbed the number off the fridge and dialed the restaurant. The hostess answered. "Hi, I'm trying to reach Mr. Miller. He and his wife are having dinner there tonight." "Oh, the Millers?" she replied. "They left about 45 minutes ago." The phone slipped from my hand, clattering against the kitchen floor. They weren't at the restaurant. They were on their way home. But why would he call and say that? Unless it wasn't him. Shaking, I picked up the phone and dialed 911. "I'm a babysitter," I stammered. Someone keeps calling me. He asked about the children. Okay, miss, stay calm, the dispatcher said, her voice steady. Can you give me the address? I gave it to her, my eyes darting around the dark living room. He sounds ... close. We can trace the call, but you have to keep him on the line for at least a minute, she instructed. If he calls back, do whatever you can. Keep him talking. I hung up, my hands slick with sweat. I didn't have to wait long. The phone rang again, the shrill sound cutting through the silence. I took a deep breath and answered. Why haven't you checked the children? The raspy voice asked. My mind raced. A minute. I had to stall. Who are you? What do you want? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. You should really go check on them, he chuckled. It was a wet, guttural sound that made my skin crawl. I did. They're sleeping so peacefully. Where are you? I pleaded, my eyes fixed on the clock. 30 seconds. Closer than you think. Just then, the other line beeped. The police. My heart leaped. I quickly clicked over. Miss? It was the dispatcher, but her calm voice was gone. It was sharp, urgent. We've traced the call. Get out of the house. Get out of the house now. The calls are coming from another phone inside the house. I didn't need to be told twice. I dropped the phone and sprinted for the front door, not daring to look back. I fumbled with the deadbolt, my fingers clumsy with terror. As I yanked the door open, I risked a glance up the stairs. At the top of the landing, a bedroom door was cracked open, a thin sliver of light spilling into the hallway. And in that light, I saw the silhouette of a man. He was just standing there, watching me. I burst out into the cold night air just as a police car, lights flashing, screeched into the driveway. I was safe. But as I watched them lead the man out of the house in handcuffs, his clothes stained with something dark, I realized the horrible truth. The children had never been in danger from him. He hadn't touched them. He had just been up there, checking on them, just like he told me. Transition 1. The horror of that story is how it shatters your sense of safety. But what happens when the threat isn't a random intruder? What if the danger is someone you willingly let into your home? For the next story, we'll leave the suburbs and head to a quiet apartment, where the person you trust the most becomes the one you fear, and you begin to question your own sanity. Section 2. My roommate keeps replacing my things. Finding a good roommate in the city is basically winning the lottery. So when I met Leo, I thought I'd hit the jackpot. He was quiet, clean, always paid his rent on time, and worked the opposite schedule as me. We were more like ships passing in the night, and honestly, that was perfect. We give each other a polite nod in the hall, or a quick have a good one on the way out the door. The apartment was a shared space, but our lives were separate. That's how it was for the first 6 months. And then, he started replacing my things. It began with my favorite coffee mug. It was a stupid thing, a cheap ceramic mug I'd gotten on a family vacation years ago, with a faded picture of a lighthouse on it. It had a chip on the rim, and the handle was starting to crack, but it was my mug. One morning, I went to make coffee, and it was gone. In its place, sitting exactly where I always left it, was a new mug. It was identical in every way, same lighthouse, same color, same shape, but this one was pristine. No chip, no crack. I figured I must have broken the old one and forgot, and Leo, being a nice guy, had gone out of his way to find a replacement. It was weird, for sure, but kind of thoughtful. I texted him, "Hey, thanks for the new mug." "You didn't have to do that." His reply came a few hours later. "What mug?" "Wasn't me." I just stood in the kitchen, staring at this perfect, unchipped mug. A cold knot formed in my stomach. I checked the trash can, thinking maybe I'd tossed the old one. Nothing. It had just vanished and been replaced. A week later, it was my worn-out copy of a book I'd read a dozen times. The spine was broken, the pages were dog-eared, and it was full of my own notes in the margins. I came home from work to find a brand new, crisp copy sitting on my nightstand. The old one was gone. I searched my room, then the whole apartment. It was nowhere. I confronted Leo that evening. Okay, this is starting to freak me out. My book, the one I was reading, it's gone. And there's a new one in its place. Did you do this? He just looked at me with genuine confusion. Man, I have no idea what you're talking about. I haven't been in your room. He looked so sincere, so believable, that for a second I actually thought I might be losing my mind. The replacements got more frequent and more personal. An old, soft t-shirt I loved, replaced by a starchy new one. A framed photo of my sister, and me, the original slightly sun-fade, was swapped with a perfect reprint, a color sharp and vibrant. Each time, the original thing, with all its history and flaws, would just disappear. In its place would be a perfect, soulless replica. I started to feel like a stranger in my own life. These were my things, but they weren't. They were missing the wear and tear of experience, the little imperfections that made them mine. It felt like I was living in a museum exhibit of my own life, and I had no idea who the curator was. The paranoia started eating at me. I bought a small camera and set it up in my room. I was going to catch Leo in the act. It had to be him. Who else could it be? I left for work with the camera hidden in a laundry pile, pointed at my desk where I'd left a scuffed-up leather journal. I checked the live feed all day. Nothing. Leo never went in my room. He left for his job, came back late same as always. When I got home, my heart was pounding. I walked straight to my bedroom. There on the desk, gleaming under the lamp, was a brand new journal. The leather was flawless. My stomach dropped. I grabbed my laptop and pulled up the footage. I fast-forwarded through the day. The video just showed my empty room. Nothing happened. But at exactly 3:14 p.m., the screen flickered for a single frame, a split second of static. I rewound it, going frame by frame. And there it was. In one frame, my old, worn journal on the desk. In the very next frame, the new one. There was no one there. No hand reached in to make the swap. The object itself had just ... changed. That's when the real horror set in. It wasn't Leo. It was something else. Something in the apartment with us. I couldn't sleep that night. I just lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to every groan of the building. Around 3 a.m., I heard a noise from the living room, a soft, shuffling sound. I crept out of my room and peered down the dark hallway. Leo was standing in the middle of the living room, completely still, but he wasn't alone. Standing directly in front of him was another Leo, an exact copy. They stood face to face, just inches apart, silent and motionless in the moonlight. One of them, the one facing away from me, was wearing the old, worn-out band t-shirt Leo always wore. The other one was wearing a brand new, identical version. I watched frozen as the Leo in the new shirt slowly raised a hand and placed it on the other's shoulder. The Leo in the old shirt didn't react. He just stood there, his eyes vacant. Then, slowly, deliberately, the one in the new shirt began to push. The other, Leo, didn't resist. He just started to fade, becoming translucent, like a hologram losing power. His form wavered, flickered, and then, with a final silent shimmer, he was gone. The remaining Leo stood alone in the living room. He smoothed out his new shirt, turned, and walked back to his bedroom without a sound. I'm writing this from a coffee shop across the street. I ran out of there with nothing but my phone and my wallet. I don't know what that thing is. I don't know if the Leo I knew for 6 months is the one that's gone, or the one that's left. All I know is that it's not just replacing things anymore. I keep checking my reflection in the window, terrified I'll see a newer. More perfect version of myself staring back, just waiting. Transition 2. Paranoia can turn your own home into a prison. But some prisons are made of steel and concrete, places with rules that aren't your own. I'm taking you away from the city now, to a place where the darkness holds more than just secrets. The next story I have for you comes from someone who took a job that seemed too good to be true, and found out that the price of a good salary was a nightly descent into madness. Section 3. The rules of the night shift. Desperation will make you do things you wouldn't normally do. After months of being unemployed, with eviction notices piling up, I would have taken any job. So when I saw the ad for a night watchman for a private storage facility, paying 3 times the minimum wage, I didn't ask a lot of questions. I should have. The interview was weird. It was in a sterile, windowless office with a man named Mr. Abernathy, whose face was as gray and expressionless as the concrete walls. He didn't ask about my work history. He didn't ask for references. He just slid a single sheet of paper across the desk. "These are the rules," he said, his voice a dry rustle. "Follow them. Don't deviate. Your shift is from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. You will be alone. Do not fail to follow the rules." I picked up the paper. It read, "Rules for the night watch. When you arrive at 10 p.m. sharp, walk the perimeter of the facility 1 time. Do not use a flashlight. Your eyes will adjust. From 11 p.m. to 3 a.m., stay inside the security office. Do not leave for any reason. The cameras will show you everything you need to see. At 3:03 a.m., the camera feeds will go out for exactly 1 minute. During this minute, do not look at the monitors. Look at the floor. Don't look up until the power comes back. You might hear knocking on the office door. Do not answer it. No one else is here. If you see a woman in a white dress on camera 7, the one for corridor C, turn that monitor off immediately. Don't turn it back on for the rest of your shift. You don't want to see her face. You will get 1 phone call. It will be from an unknown number. Answer it. A voice will whisper a series of numbers. Write them down. Don't forget them. Mr. Abernathy will ask you for them in the morning. Do not, under any circumstances, open storage unit 13B. The last rule was underlined 3 times. The whole thing seemed like some kind of elaborate prank for the new guy. But the paycheck was real, and so was my desperation. I took the job. My first night was quiet. I walked the perimeter in the oppressive darkness. The only sound was the crunch of gravel under my boots. Back in the office, I watched the 16 grainy, black and white screens. It was incredibly boring. Just rows and rows of identical metal doors. At exactly 3:03 a.m., the monitors went black. I remembered the rule and dropped my eyes to the grimy floor. The silence in the office was suddenly deafening. I could hear my own heart beating. That minute felt like an hour. Just as I was about to risk a look, I heard it. A soft, wet scraping sound from right outside my office door. It dragged on for about 10 seconds and then stopped. A moment later, the monitors flickered back on. Everything looked normal. The nights that followed were a slow spiral into terror. The knocking started on my 3rd night. A gentle, rhythmic tap, tap, tap on the reinforced steel door. I held my breath, eyes glued to the monitors, which showed a completely empty hallway. The knocking went on for an hour, steady and patient, before it finally stopped. The next week, I saw her. It was almost 4 a.m. when my eyes drifted to camera 7. Standing at the far end of corridor C was a woman in a long, white dress. Her back was to the camera, her dark hair hanging to her waist. I couldn't see her face, but this overwhelming sense of dread washed over me. My hand shot out and switched off the monitor, heart pounding. I didn't turn it back on. The phone call came during my 2nd week. An unknown number. I answered, my hand shaking. "Hello?" There was a long pause. then a dry, rasping whisper in my ear. 74190. It repeated the numbers once more, then the line went dead. I scribbled them down on a notepad. I was starting to get it. These weren't rules for a job. They were rules for survival. Each one I followed felt like dodging an invisible bullet. But the curiosity about Unit 13B was eating me alive. What could possibly be in there? It was a Tuesday, my 5th week, when I broke. The night had been unusually quiet. No knocking. No woman. The 3:03 a.m. outage had passed in total silence. I had the numbers from the phone call. Everything was fine, but the silence is what got to me. It felt heavy. Corridor B was long and dim. My footsteps echoed. And there it was. Unit 13B. It looked just like all the others. A big corrugated metal door with a heavy-duty lock. Nothing special about it at all. My heart was racing. "Don't do it," a voice screamed in my head. But another, quieter voice whispered, "You have to know." I used the master key. The lock clicked open, the sound deafeningly loud. I took a deep breath and slid the heavy door up. The unit was empty. Completely bare. I felt a rush of disappointed relief. It was all a stupid joke. Mr. Abernathy was probably laughing his ass off, watching me on a hidden camera. Then I saw it. In the very back corner, almost hidden in the shadows, was a small wooden chair. And sitting on the chair was a little, child-sized doll in a faded lace dress. It was old, with cracked porcelain skin and one missing button eye. I stepped inside for a closer look. The second my foot crossed the threshold, the heavy metal door slammed shut behind me. Total darkness. Panic took over. I threw myself against the door, screaming, pounding my fists against the cold metal until they were raw. It wouldn't budge. I was trapped. My fingers shaking, I fumbled for my phone to use the flashlight. After a few tries, a weak beam cut through the black. I pointed it toward the back of the unit. The chair was empty. I swept the light across the small space. The doll was gone. Then I heard it. A tiny giggle, coming from the corner right behind me. I spun around, the light dancing wildly. Nothing there. But the giggling continued, seeming to come from all around me now. It was high and childlike, but filled with a kind of malice that turned my blood cold. Suddenly, the giggling stopped, and it was replaced by a familiar sound. A soft, wet scraping. The same sound from outside the office door on my first night. It was getting closer. I backed away until I hit the cold metal of the door. The scraping was right in front of me now, just past the edge of my light. I could smell something, a coppery, metallic scent like old blood. Then a small, pale hand darted into the light. The fingers were too long, the nails dirty and broken. It was followed by another. The hands pawed at the floor, dragging something into the light. It was the doll, but it was different. Its one good eye was glowing with a faint, red light. Its painted smile was stretched into a wide, grotesque grin, full of tiny, pointed teeth. It dragged itself towards me, a scraping sound coming from its porcelain legs, pulling its body across the concrete. I screamed, a raw, animal sound of pure terror. I dropped my phone, and the light went out. The last thing I heard before my mind just snapped was that horrible, childish giggle right next to my ear. I don't know how long I was in there. I woke up to the sound of the unit door rolling open, flooding the space with gray dawn light. Mr. Abernathy was standing there, his face as blank as ever. He didn't look at me. He looked past me, at the back of the unit. The chair was back in the corner. The doll was sitting on it, head tilted, its one button eye staring blankly forward. "You broke the rule," was all he said. He didn't fire me. He didn't have to. I never went back. I left town that day. But sometimes, when I'm alone in the dark, I still hear it. that tiny, malicious giggle. And I know, with a certainty that freezes my soul, that I didn't leave that storage unit alone. Something followed me out. Transition 3. Some horrors are tied to a place, a set of rules you can't break. But the final story I have for you isn't about a place you can just leave behind. It's about a journey you can't escape. It's about a train that travels through landscapes made of regret and sorrow. This last story is one that has haunted readers for years, a tale of pure existential dread called the Shadowlands Express. Section 4. The Shadowlands Express. I can't tell you exactly why I ended up on the Shadowlands Express. Maybe everyone gets a ticket, sooner or later. My life wasn't anything special. I had a corporate job I was good at mostly, because I was good at climbing ladders, even if it meant stepping on a few hands. I'd had a wife, Anna, but I lost her. First to my own ambition, and then, a year ago, to cancer. My grief was a hollow, selfish thing. I was sad that I had lost something, not that she had suffered. The night I got on the train, I was drunk. I remember stumbling through a nearly abandoned station, lights buzzing over empty platforms. A ticket attendant with dead eyes sold me a ticket. I saw the last train and sprinted, jumping on just as the doors hissed shut. I collapsed into a seat and passed out. When I woke up, the train was strangely silent, except for the steady hum of the engine. I looked out the window and saw a city, but it was a dead city. Every building was dark. No lights, no cars, no people. The only light came from our train, cutting a lonely path through the void. A cold, deep fear started to creep in. This was not my train. I stumbled down the aisle, looking for anyone. In the next car, I found them. 5 other passengers, all with the same confused fear on their faces. There was a twitchy guy in his 40s, named Dennis, a stern-looking woman, a young couple huddled together, and a quiet man staring out the window. None of them knew where we were. Our phones had no signal. The emergency brake did nothing. We were trapped on a ghost train to nowhere. It was the stern woman who found the first clue. She looked at her ticket, the one from the dead-eyed attendant. Her name was printed on it. We all checked ours. Every ticket had our full name and a single cryptic message. Mine read, "He who builds his house with the stones of others will find his own foundation is but dust." Before we could figure out what it meant, the conductor appeared. He was tall and unnaturally thin in an old-fashioned uniform. His face was a mask of polite indifference. "Welcome," he said, his voice cool and detached. "Welcome to the Shadowlands Express. Please remain seated and obey all instructions. This journey will provide you with opportunities. Whether you take them is your choice." He offered no other explanation. The train sped on, and the dead city was replaced by a dark, endless forest. Between the trees, we saw shadows moving, and sometimes pairs of red eyes would just burn in the darkness, watching us pass. Our first trial, as the conductor called it, was for Dennis. The train stopped in the middle of the woods. The conductor opened the door. "Dennis," he said, "your ticket instructs you to step onto the platform, wait 10 seconds, and reboard." Dennis, panicked and sweating, refused. "No way. I'm not getting off this train." He tried to run to the next car, but as he ran, he seemed to turn transparent, his body flickering. In a few seconds, he had just faded into nothing. The conductor closed the door. "A pity," he said calmly. He only needed to obey. But running away was his nature. He looked at the rest of us. He had free will, as do all of you. Remember that. The journey continued. We passed strange platforms where unsettling figures just stood and watched. One was a hooded man, holding a massive white wolf on a leash that barked and snarled as we passed. My trial came late in the night. The train stopped at a station that looked painfully familiar. It was a perfect copy of the station near the home I had shared with my wife. The conductor turned to me. "Your ticket instructs you to exit the train. Someone is waiting for you." My heart pounded. Anna. It had to be. I stepped onto the platform. And there she was, under a flickering lamppost, looking just like she had before she got sick. But her eyes were so sad. "Hello, Nathan," she whispered. "Anna ... "I'm so sorry," I cried, that selfish grief I'd been carrying finally breaking, replaced by a wave of real, agonizing regret. "I should have been there. I was a terrible husband." She gave me a sad smile. "You built your career, Nathan. That was what was important to you." "No," I sobbed. "You were. I was just too stupid to see it." The train's whistle blew, a long, mournful sound. "You have a choice," Anna said, gesturing to the station exit. "You can leave the train. Stay here with me in this memory, or you can get back on. It's your choice." I looked at her, my heart breaking. To stay here with her, even a memory of her, was all I wanted. But I knew it wasn't real. It would be another prison. Then I looked back at the train, at the other scared faces in the windows. Their journey wasn't over, and maybe mine wasn't either. "I have to go back," I said, my voice thick with tears. "I have to see where it goes." She nodded, a single tear rolling down her cheek. "I know. Goodbye, Nathan." I got back on the train. As it pulled away, I watched her get smaller and smaller, until she was just a point of light swallowed by the dark. I had faced my biggest regret, and I had chosen to move forward. The train is still moving. There are fewer of us now. Some left at their own stations. Some failed their trials. We don't know our final destination. We just know that we're on a journey through the shadows of our own lives. This train runs on grief and regret, but at each stop, it offers a chance. A chance to face the past, and maybe, just maybe, earn a future. I don't know what's at the end of the line, but for the first time in a long, long time, I'm not afraid to find out. Transition 4. The Shadowlands Express took us on a journey through the darkness of the human soul. But some darkness is more ancient, more physical. It lives in the wild places of the world, far from any road or railway. Our next story comes from a search and rescue officer, someone whose job it is to venture into that wilderness. He found that sometimes the people you're looking for aren't the only thing you find. Section 5. The Stairs in the Woods. I'm a search and rescue officer. I've seen my fair share of strange things out in the deep woods, miles from any civilization. People get lost, sure, but sometimes it feels like the woods themselves take them. We have procedures for everything, protocols for every scenario. But there's one thing they don't train you for, something the veterans only talk about in hushed tones after a few drinks: the stairs. On just about every case where we're really far into the wilderness, 30 or 40 miles out, at some point we'll find a staircase in the middle of the woods. It's almost like if you took the stairs in your house, cut them out, and put them in the forest. The first time I saw a set, I couldn't make sense of it. We were searching for a missing hiker, a young woman who'd been gone for 2 days. We were deep in a national forest, a place so dense the sunlight barely touched the ground. And then we saw it. A perfectly clean, carpeted staircase. It just went up about 15 feet, and then stopped. There was no house, no ruins, no explanation. Just a staircase to nowhere. My partner, a guy who'd been doing this for 20 years, just shook his head and walked around it. "Don't go near it," he said, not even looking back. "We don't touch them. We don't climb them. We pretend they're not there." He told me later that it's a known thing among SAR officers. The official line from our superiors is to not talk about it. But curiosity is a powerful thing. A few years later, I was on a solo patrol, checking some trails after a storm. I came across another set. This one was different. It was made of dark, polished wood, like something from an old Victorian mansion. It spiraled upwards around a tree that wasn't there. An overwhelming urge to climb it washed over me. I just wanted to see what was at the top. I put one foot on the first step. Instantly, the woods went silent. No birds, no wind, nothing. It was a complete and total absence of sound that was more deafening than any noise. A cold dread, primal and absolute, filled me. I felt like I was being watched by something ancient and vast, something that had been there long before the trees. I yanked my foot back as if the step had been red hot. The sound of the forest rushed back in, so suddenly it made me jump. The worst incident happened last fall. We were looking for a little boy, maybe 8 years old, who'd wandered away from his family's campsite. The search had been going on for almost 24 hours. The dogs led us to a part of the forest none of us were familiar with. And there, in a small clearing, was a set of plain stone stairs, leading down into the ground as if to a basement. My blood ran cold. The lead officer on the scene, a man named Dave, had a grim look on his face. He told the rookie with us, a kid named Mark, to stay put and not, under any circumstances, go near the stairs. Dave and I started to circle the clearing, looking for tracks. That's when we heard it, a small, terrified whimper. It was coming from the bottom of the stairs. Mark, the rookie, heard it too. He broke protocol. Before anyone could stop him, he was running towards the stairs. I think he's down there. He yelled. Dave screamed at him to stop, but it was too late. Mark descended into the darkness. We heard him say, "It's okay. I'm here to help." Then there was a moment of silence, followed by a scream. It wasn't the boy's scream. It was Mark's. It was a sound of pure agony and terror, and it was cut off so sharply it was like a tape being snipped. Then, silence again. We stood there frozen, for what felt like an eternity. Dave was on the radio, his voice shaking, calling for backup and a special extraction team he wouldn't explain. We never went down those stairs. The official report said Mark had a mental breakdown, ran off into the woods, and was never found. The little boy was found the next morning, miles away, walking along a highway. He had no memory of how he got there. He just said he followed the quiet man away from the scary stairs. I still work SAR. I still go out into the wilderness. But now, when I see a staircase where it doesn't belong, I give it a wide berth. I don't get curious. I just turn around and walk the other way. Some things in the woods are meant to be left alone. And whatever is at the top or the bottom of those stairs, it isn't for us. Transition 5. The woods hold their own kind of horror, a sense of being lost in a place that is hostile to human life. But in our modern world, we can be haunted in places far more intimate than a forest. The ghosts of today live in our phones, our computers. They hide in our digital memories. The next story is about a haunting for the 21st century, when the person you've lost refuses to let you go. Section 6. My dead girlfriend keeps messaging me. My girlfriend Emily died on August 7th, 2012. She was in a 3-car pileup, gone in an instant. We'd been together for 5 years. She was vibrant, funny, the kind of person who smelled like cinnamon and chose dare every single time. After she died, I couldn't bring myself to deactivate her Facebook account. It felt too final. I'd go there sometimes, look at her pictures, and even send messages into the void. It was my way of coping. Then, about a year after the accident, she messaged me back. It was just a single word. "Hello." I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. I knew her mom, Susan, had the password, so I figured it had to be her. I called Susan, but she was confused. She swore she hadn't been on Emily's account in months. I assumed it must have been a hacker, a cruel, sick prank. I tried to ignore it, but the messages kept coming. They were sporadic, sometimes weeks apart. They were always short. "Miss you. What are you doing?" Nothing that couldn't be a generic message from a hacker. I started blocking the account, reporting it, everything I could think of. But somehow it would get unblocked. A new message would appear. The first time I truly believed it might be her was when the messages started referencing things no one else could possibly know. We had this stupid inside joke about a movie we'd seen, something about a chimpanzee's toe. It was a ridiculous tangential detail from our history. One night I got a message. Long toes like a chimpanzee. My blood ran cold. Susan wouldn't know that. None of my friends would. It had to be a hacker who had somehow scraped our entire chat history. That had to be it. I replied, my hands shaking. Who is this? This isn't funny. The reply came instantly. It's me. The messages started getting more personal, more specific. They were fragments of old conversations, things she'd said to me years ago, twisted and out of context. Then photos started appearing. Not old photos from her profile, but new ones. Grainy, dark pictures of the back of my own head, taken through my apartment window. A picture of my car, parked outside my office. The fear was suffocating. I felt like I was being watched, not just online, but in real life. I changed my passwords, covered my webcams, but the messages didn't stop. They became more insistent, more like her. One night, drunk and miserable, I messaged the account. I miss you so much, Em. I'm sorry I was always so afraid to be affectionate. It was true. She had always been more reserved, and I was often too scared of being vulnerable to tell her how much I loved her. The reply was what broke me. It was a screenshot of an old conversation we'd had years before. I had been trying to convince her to let me drive her home from a party because she'd been drinking. The last message in the screenshot was from her. Just let me walk. Then a new message came through. Cold. That one word shattered my world. In the crash, the dashboard had crushed her lower body. The paramedics said she was severed from her right hip to her left thigh. One of her legs was found under the back seat. I started messaging frantically, begging, pleading for whoever this was to stop, to tell me what they wanted. The profile picture changed. It was no longer the smiling photo of her on the beach. It was a dark, blurry image. I could just make out a face, pale and blue, with empty sockets for eyes. It was her, from the morgue. I had only seen that photo once, at the police station. No one else had seen it. The final message I ever received came 2 nights ago. It wasn't text this time. It was a photo. A photo of me, sleeping in my bed. In the corner of the image, barely visible in the darkness, a pale, slender hand was reaching out towards me. The timestamp was from 3 minutes earlier. I haven't slept since. I'm writing this from a motel 2 states away. I left my laptop, my phone, everything. But I know it won't matter. I don't think it's a hacker. I don't think it's a prank. I think it's her. And I think she wants me to come with her. Transition 6. A ghost in the machine is one thing. It's a personal haunting. But what happens when your job puts you on the front line? A gatekeeper between our world and something else? This next story comes from a lonely stretch of highway, where a gas station X is more than just a place to refuel. Section 7. The gas station on Route 73. The night shift at the 24/7 gas station on Route 73 was my last resort. The pay was surprisingly good, but nobody ever stayed longer than a month. The manager, a tired-looking man named Jude, handed me a crumpled, laminated sheet of paper on my first night. "This is more important than the employee handbook," he said, his eyes serious. "Memorize it. Live by it. Don't be a hero." The list was titled Night Shift Rules. I thought it was a joke. It wasn't. The man in the plaid shirt will come in around 1 a.m. He will buy a map of the state. It will always be the same map. Ring him up, wish him a good night, and do not ask him where he is going. He doesn't know. Between 2 o'clock and 2:30 a.m., you may hear a car idling at pump 4, but you won't see a car on the cameras. Lock the main door and go to the back office. Do not look out the window until you hear the car drive away. The phone will ring at exactly 3:03 a.m. Do not answer it. Let it ring. It will stop after the 13th ring. If you answer, they will know you are alone. A man with no shoes and no shadow might enter the store. Do not speak to him. Do not make eye contact. Let him take whatever he wants. He is not stealing. He is collecting a toll. He will leave. Half of the store lights must be turned off after midnight. It does not matter which half. This is not to save electricity. This is to give them somewhere to stand where you can't see them. Do not enter the unlit half of the store unless you have to. If you see a customer staring intently at the frozen food section for more than 10 minutes, that is Mr. Freeze. Do not approach him. His focus is not on the ice cream. When he leaves, check the glass door of the freezer. If there is a handprint made of frost on the inside, wipe it away immediately. Do not, under any circumstances, look out the back window. There is nothing to see back there, and you do not want it to see you. My first few nights were eerily quiet, making the rules seem even more absurd. Then, on a Thursday, the man in the plaid shirt came in. Same time, same map. I rang him up, heart hammering in my chest, and told him to have a good night. He just nodded, his eyes vacant, and left. The following night, I heard the car at pump 4. I locked the door and ran to the office, my body trembling. I heard the thump-thump of a heavy bass, even though there was no music. It lasted for 5 minutes before fading away. I never answered the 3:03 a.m. phone call, but I counted the rings every single night. Always 13. The silence after the last ring was the worst part. The night I quit, everything happened at once. It started with Mr. Freeze. He came in, stared at the freezer for his usual 30 minutes, and left. When I went to check the glass, there wasn't just a handprint. There was a face. A screaming face, etched in the frost from the inside. As I frantically wiped it away, the store bell chimed. It was the man with no shoes. He walked in, his feet unnaturally clean. As he moved, the lights above him didn't cast a shadow. He walked through the aisles, picking things up: a bag of chips, a can of soda, a pack of batteries, and putting them into a burlap sack. I kept my eyes on the floor, my heart pounding a rhythm against my ribs. He walked to the counter and paused. I could feel his gaze on me. I didn't look up. After a moment that felt like a lifetime, he turned and left. I was gasping for air, slick with sweat, when the 3:03 a.m. call came. It rang, once, twice. On the third ring, the power went out. Total, absolute darkness. And the ringing stopped. I remembered another rule, one Jude had added verbally. If the power ever goes out, he'd said, run. I didn't hesitate. I scrambled over the counter and bolted for the front door, which was now unlocked. As my hand hit the push bar, I broke a rule. I glanced at the unlit side of the store. They were there, dozens of them. Tall, impossibly thin shadows packed together in the darkness. They weren't moving, but I could feel their collective gaze turn to me. And in the absolute silence, I heard a single unified whisper coming from all of them at once. We see you. I threw the door open and ran into the night, not stopping until the sun came up. I never went back for my last paycheck. Some jobs just aren't worth it. Some places aren't just stores. They're waiting rooms. And I have no desire to find out what they're waiting for. I didn't stop running until I was inside my apartment with the door locked and bolted. I lived in that city for another 6 months, and I never went for a late-night walk again. I don't know what he was. A man on drugs? Someone having a psychotic break? Or something else? All I know is that his face is burned into my memory. That wide, unnatural smile and those dead, skyward eyes. There was no humanity in them. Only a terrifying, playful madness. Transition 8. The world outside can be a dangerous, unpredictable place. We retreat to our homes for safety, locking the door against the darkness. But we've already learned that the call can come from inside the house. What if the house itself has its own permanent and malevolent resident? The next story is about a move-in that comes with some very unusual terms and conditions. Section 9. The previous tenant left a list of rules. I found the apartment on Craigslist. It seemed too good to be true. Huge place, great neighborhood. Rent so low, it had to be a typo. I met the landlord, a nervous, sweaty man who barely made eye contact. He gave me the keys and was gone before I could ask any questions. It was only after I'd moved all my boxes in that I found the note. It was taped to the inside of the bedroom closet. It was a list, handwritten on a yellowing piece of legal paper. The title was Rules for Living in Apartment 5B. I thought it was a joke from the previous tenant. Then I read the first rule. The building's mailman does not deliver to the apartments. He leaves everything in the mailroom. If someone knocks on your door, claiming to be the mailman, do not open it. You will sometimes hear screaming in the hallway at night. It sounds like a woman. It is not a woman. Do not investigate. Keep your door locked. Do not leave food out on the kitchen counter overnight. Not because of pests. It will be gone in the morning, but you will find something else in its place. You do not want to know what that is. There is a little girl who sometimes appears in the hallway wearing a white dress. If you see her through the peephole, tell her, "Your parents are looking for you." She will leave. Do not let her see that you are afraid. Sometimes the lights will flicker. When they do, go to the bathroom, lock the door, and do not come out until they are steady again. You might hear footsteps approach the bathroom door. Stay quiet. The man in 5A, Mr. Henderson, seems nice. He is not. Do not accept any packages for him. Do not speak to him for longer than is polite. His eyes are not the right color. If you wake up in the middle of the night and smell something like rotting meat, get out of bed, turn on every light in the apartment, and wait in the living room until sunrise. Do not go back to sleep. I laughed, crumpled up the paper, and tossed it in the trash. What a weirdo. My first week was fine, normal. Then one evening there was a knock at the door. "Mailman," a cheerful voice called. I almost opened it, then I remembered the note. A shiver went down my spine. I crept to the peephole. A man in a postal uniform was standing there, smiling. But his smile was too wide, and his bag looked empty. I backed away from the door without a sound. He knocked again, harder this time. Then he laughed, a low, guttural sound, and I heard his footsteps recede. A few nights later, the screaming started. It was horrifying, a woman's voice filled with pain and terror. It sounded like it was right outside my door. I had my phone in my hand, ready to call 911, but the words from the note echoed in my head. It is not a woman. I put in headphones and blasted music until it stopped. I followed the rules. I never left food out. I ignored the flickering lights. But the most terrifying encounter happened about a month in. I was heading out to work and saw the little girl. She was standing at the far end of the hall, in her white dress, just staring at my door. My heart leaped into my throat. I looked through the peephole to confirm. It was her. Her face was pale, and her eyes were just dark, empty pits. My voice trembled as I spoke through the door. "Your parents are looking for you." She tilted her head, a motion that was jerky and unnatural. Then she smiled, a smile that didn't reach her empty eyes. "No, they're not," she whispered, her voice like dry leaves skittering across pavement. "But he is." Without another word, she turned and walked, not to the elevator, but straight into the wall at the end of the hall, vanishing like smoke. I broke my lease the next day. As I was packing my last box, there was a knock. It was Mr. Henderson from 5A. He was holding a plate of cookies. "A little welcome gift," he said, smiling warmly. "I know we haven't had a chance to talk." I looked into his eyes. The note was right. They were the wrong color. A swirling, vibrant purple that seemed to shift and move. "No, thank you," I said, my hand shaking on the doorknob. "I'm actually moving out." His smile faltered, just for a second. The warmth in his strange eyes turned to ice. "Oh," he said, his voice dropping. "What a pity. He was just starting to like you." He turned and walked back to his apartment. I didn't wait to see if he went inside. I left the rest of my things, ran out of that building, and never looked back. I still don't know who he was, but I know that in apartment 5B, I was not the only tenant. Transition 9. An apartment can feel like a cage when something is in there with you. But there's a different kind of fear that comes from wide open spaces, when you can see for miles, and you know something is out there, watching you from the cover of the corn. Section 10. The thing in the fields? I bought the farmhouse to escape. To escape the noise, the people, the constant pressure of the city. It was an old place, paint peeling and floors creaking, surrounded on all four sides by an endless sea of cornfields. The nearest neighbor was 5 miles away. It was perfect. The old farmer who sold it to me, a man named Silas, gave me a strange look as I signed the papers. "You'll get used to the quiet," he said, his voice low, "but you'll never get used to the rustling. Just remember, if you see it, stay inside. And don't ever let it see you." I chuckled, thinking he was just a superstitious old man. See what? He just shook his head and walked away. The first few weeks were blissful. The quiet was absolute. Then I started noticing things. Every morning, the hay bales I had arranged near the barn had moved. Just a few feet each night, creeping slowly across the field. I blamed the wind or kids playing pranks, though I hadn't seen another soul for miles. Then came the rustling. It wasn't the wind. The nights here were often dead still. This was a deliberate sound, the sound of something large moving through the corn, just beyond the circle of light from my porch. It would circle the house, a soft, rhythmic shush-shush of stalks being pushed aside. I told myself it was a deer or a coyote, but it sounded too big. One night, I was sitting on the porch, a little braver than usual after a couple of beers. The rustling started, closer this time. I grabbed a powerful flashlight and shone it out into the corn. The beam cut a path through the darkness. The rustling stopped. I swept the light back and forth, seeing nothing but the tall green stalks. I was about to turn the light off when I saw it. It was for just a second, at the very edge of the beam. It was tall, impossibly thin, and hunched over. Its limbs were long and gangly, moving with a strange, jointless fluidity. Its skin was the color of pale earth. I couldn't see a face, just a vague shape where a head should be. Then it was gone, swallowed by the corn. My heart hammered against my ribs. That was no deer. I stumbled back inside, locking the door and every window. Silas's words echoed in my head. Don't ever let it see you. The next day, I found a pattern in the moved hay bales. They were forming a line, a boundary, getting closer and closer to an old dirt road that cut through the fields. It was like they were marking a path. The terror peaked last night. A massive thunderstorm rolled in, the sky exploding with light and sound. I was watching the storm from the living room window when a flash of lightning illuminated the entire field, and I saw it. It was standing in the middle of the field, stock still, its head tilted up towards the sky as if drinking in the rain. It was even taller than I thought, a towering, emaciated silhouette against the violent sky. As I watched, frozen in horror, it slowly lowered its head and turned, its featureless face looking directly at my house. It saw me. Another flash of lightning, and it was gone. But the rustling began immediately. not circling the house this time. It was coming straight for it. A frantic, scraping, tearing sound, getting louder and louder. I ran to the cellar, bolted the heavy wooden door, and huddled in the dark, listening. I heard the porch steps splinter. I heard the front door being torn from its hinges. And then the slow, deliberate thump, thump, thump of its heavy footsteps walking through my house, directly above me. It was searching. I'm still in the cellar. The sun came up hours ago, but the footsteps haven't stopped. They just pace back and forth on the floor above me. The house is silent otherwise. I think it's waiting. It knows I'm down here. It saw me, and now it won't leave until it finds me. I can hear the floorboards creaking right above my head. It's standing right over the cellar door. Transition 10. The old fears of the field and forest are powerful. But we create new anxieties with every new piece of technology we bring into our homes. We buy them to feel safer, to be more connected, but we're also opening new doors. And we don't always know what might come through them. This next story is for every parent who has ever watched their child through a grainy monitor in the dead of night. Section 11. I bought a used baby monitor when our son, Leo, was born. My wife Carrie and I were overwhelmed with a typical new parent anxiety. We bought a baby monitor to soothe our nerves, a second-hand video model we found online. We set it up in the nursery, the camera pointed at the crib, and put the receiver on my nightstand. For the first few weeks, it was a godsend. We could see him sleeping peacefully, his little chest rising and falling. The first strange thing happened about a month in. I woke up to a thump from the monitor. I grabbed it, my heart racing. The screen showed Leo sleeping soundly, but I knew I'd heard something. I wrote it off as the house settling and went back to sleep. A few nights later, it happened again. A thump, followed by a faint cry. I looked at the monitor. Leo was still asleep, his mouth closed, but I had heard him cry. I crept into his room. He was fast asleep. Back in bed, I stared at the grainy black and white image, a knot of unease tightening in my stomach. The whispers started the next week. I'd wake up in the dead of night and hear it through the monitor. A soft, sibilant voice, too low to make out the words. It sounded like someone was in the nursery, whispering directly into the camera's microphone. Every time, I'd bolt out of bed and race to his room, only to find him sleeping alone. Carrie thought I was losing my mind from sleep deprivation. "It's probably just interference," she'd say. "Maybe we're picking up a neighbor's monitor." But one night, we both heard it. It was louder this time. A clear, masculine voice whispering, "Sweet dreams." We stared at each other in the darkness, horrified. I grabbed the heavy mag light from the nightstand, and we ran to the nursery together. The room was empty. Leo was safe. But we knew we weren't imagining it. We were about to unplug the thing for good when the worst night happened. I woke up around 3 a.m. It wasn't a sound that woke me, but a feeling of being watched. I glanced at the monitor. There was a figure standing over Leo's crib. It was a tall, dark silhouette, its form indistinct in the grainy night vision. It was just standing there, leaning over the crib, looking down at my son. I couldn't breathe. I was completely frozen in terror. I tried to scream, to wake Carrie, but no sound came out. The figure slowly raised a long, thin arm and pointed a finger at the camera. Then, the monitor feed cut to static. That broke the spell. "Someone's in his room," I screamed. We burst out of bed and sprinted down the hall. I threw open the nursery door, ready to fight for my son's life. The room was empty. Leo was in his crib, crying his lungs out. But there was no one there. The window was locked from the inside. There was no place to hide. As Carrie calmed Leo, my eyes fell on the camera. Taped to the front of it was a small, folded piece of paper. My hands were shaking so hard, I could barely pull it off. I unfolded it. It was a photograph, a Polaroid. It was a picture of Carrie and me, sleeping in our bed. The photo was taken from the foot of our bed, from the perspective of someone standing in our room, watching us. On the bottom of the photo, written in shaky handwriting, were 2 words. My turn. We called the police. They found no signs of a break-in. They told us it was likely a prank, that someone had hacked our wireless signal. We moved the next week. We threw the monitor in a dumpster, but I know it wasn't a hacker. A hacker can't get inside your house. A hacker can't take a Polaroid picture. Something was in our home. Something that used our own technology to terrorize us, to let us know it could get to our son, and that it could get to us too. Transition 11. A baby monitor creates a terrifying distance between seeing a threat and being able to stop it. But what is more terrifying? Seeing a monster on a screen, or waking up to find it standing right next to your bed? Our final story tonight deals with the most primal fear of all, the invasion of your most private space, your own bedroom, in the moment you are most vulnerable. Section 12. The Man in My Room. I've had sleep paralysis for as long as I can remember. I'd wake up in the dead of night, my mind fully alert, but my body completely frozen, pinned to the mattress by an invisible weight. In those first few moments of panicked consciousness, I'd often see things, shadows that moved in the corners of my room, fleeting shapes that would vanish as soon as I could move again. Doctors told me they were hypnagogic hallucinations. A common side effect, nothing to worry about. But the man was different. He first appeared when I was in college. I woke up paralyzed, the familiar dread washing over me. But this time, I wasn't alone. There was a figure standing in the corner of my dorm room, partially obscured by shadow. He was tall, wearing a dark coat and a wide-brimmed hat that concealed his face. I just knew instinctively that he was watching me. I squeezed my eyes shut, praying for it to end, for my body to obey me. When I finally broke free and my eyes snapped open, he was gone. It kept happening. A few times a year, I'd wake up to the same nightmare, paralyzed, and him standing in the corner, silent and still. I never saw his face, but the sheer malevolence I felt radiating from him was more terrifying than any monster I could imagine. I named him the Hatman, my own private demon. I told myself he was just a trick of my mind, a recurring hallucination. Then I moved into my first apartment after graduation. The sleep paralysis episodes got more frequent, and the Hatman got bolder. He was no longer content to stand in the corner. I'd wake up to find him standing at the foot of my bed, a tall silhouette against the faint city light from my window. One night, I woke up, paralyzed, and he was standing right beside my bed, so close I could have reached out and touched him, if I could move. I could hear something, a faint, dry whispering, but I couldn't make out the words. The line between my sleep paralysis and my waking life began to blur. I'd catch a glimpse of a tall man in a hat on a crowded street, and my heart would seize with panic. I'd see a dark coat hanging on a door and mistake it for him. The paranoia was constant. I was afraid to go to sleep. The last time I saw him was a month ago. I woke up, trapped in my own body. The room was darker than usual. I couldn't see him, but I could feel him. The air was thick with his presence, cold and heavy. The whispering was louder now, a dry, rustling sound that seemed to come from inside my own head. I fought against the paralysis with every ounce of my will, my mind screaming. And then I felt a weight on my chest. It was a pressure, cold and impossibly heavy. I managed to open my eyes just a crack. He was leaning over me. For the first time, I saw his face. It was a pale, featureless mask of skin, but where his mouth should have been, there was only a stitched, jagged line. And his eyes were just empty, black holes. He leaned closer, the whispering getting louder and louder until it was a roaring in my ears. I felt a cold, sharp pressure on my forehead, and then I broke free. I screamed, a raw, guttural sound, and scrambled out of bed, crashing into my knitstand. The room was empty. He was gone. I stood there, shaking and sobbing, for a long time. I haven't had a sleep paralysis episode since that night. I should be relieved, but I'm not. Because the next morning, when I looked in the mirror, I saw it. On my forehead, right between my eyes, was a small, thin, perfectly straight scratch. It was scabbed over, as if it had been made by a sharp fingernail. He wasn't a hallucination. He wasn't a dream. He was real. And he touched me. I don't know what he is or what he wants, but I know he's not gone. He's just waiting. And I know, with a certainty that chills me to the bone, that the next time I see him, I won't be paralyzed, and I won't be in my bed. Conclusion and CTA. We've spent the last couple of hours in the shadows, listening to whispers from the dark corners of the internet. Stories of homes that weren't safe, of people who weren't what they seemed, of bizarre rules, and of journeys with no clear end. The power of these stories from Our Now Sleep is that they feel true. They're crafted to sound like real people reaching out from a place of genuine fear. They remind us that the most terrifying monsters aren't the ones with claws and fangs. They're the ones that look just like us, the ones living in our homes, and the ones hiding inside ourselves. Thank you for joining me. If you made it this far, the darkness hasn't claimed you yet. If you have a story of your own that feels a little too real, you can submit it to the email in the description below. If you want more compilations like this, don't forget to like this video and subscribe so you never miss another trip into the dark. You can also find me on my podcast, where the nightmares continue. Until next time, try to get some sleep. But if you hear a strange noise, or the phone rings in the middle of the night, it's probably just the wind. Probably.